Welcome to Undertold, where we tell the stories in Black history you may not know. Today, my guest is John Grant IV, and as always, I write the guest bios without their permission, so here we go. You're more than welcome to get edits if you think I missed something.
Okay.
We've chosen John today because John has several tattoos of Black leaders. In fact, he went through a period where he was obsessed with Tupac Shakur despite being 5 when Tupac was killed. And apparently, unlike Michael B. Jordan, John will physically fight you if you call him the N-word. He also is an expectant father. That's something he's very excited about, and he loves with his whole heart. He's an Air Force veteran and an aspiring avid reader of Black history. What did I leave out? What did I leave out in the introduction about you? What do I need to edit out?
You don't need to leave out anything, but you do need to add that, like, I have a pretty good-looking physique. That counts for something.
He's
right?
also not single, so unnecessary information. Who do you have? Very happily taken. Let us know, who do you have tattoos of?
Who do I have tattoos of? Now, I just want y'all to keep in mind, audience, that this was done 12 years ago. I was done deep into my Black Power era of my life. But the answer is Tupac, Bob Marley, Martin Luther King Jr., Marcus Garvey, and can't even think of them off the top of my head. And
You want to just check your body?
And Huey Newton.
Huey P. Newton. Very relevant to what we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get started, I'd love to hear, we always ask our guests, share a fact about the world that we probably don't know. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be about Black history. It can be science, history, whatever you got. What is it?
You know.
I know. Oh,
you know this because you a South Carolina representative. And we got 864, 803. What's the other one?
843.
843.
Mm-hmm.
We run the country when it comes to this peach stuff, man. We make more peaches than the self-proclaimed peach state, Georgia peach state. I know people from Georgia love to put the little Georgia peach emojis by their names and all that. It's us. So, keep that in mind next time you have a summer peach. Thanks, South Carolina, for that.
So you're saying South Carolina produces more peaches than Georgia?
Yeah, about 70 million more pounds a year. So
wow, that's a cool fun fact. I love that fact. I didn't know the details of it, but I did know that we make more peaches. And I say we. I don't live in South Carolina, but I will always represent South Carolina.
You rep that.
So that's an awesome fun fact, and your tattoos were a great head start into where we're going today. Today we are going to talk about the Black Panthers free breakfast program. We could probably do a 50-part series on the Black Panthers themselves, and maybe we will. But today we have a pretty specific focus. We are going to talk about the People's Free Breakfast Program. What do you know about the People's Free Breakfast Program?
I would say that I know that obviously the free food program was implemented by the Black Panther Party. Kids around the community, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the schools were not doing that at the time.
Yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis. That's a really good start. I think, honestly, of all of the programs that the Black Panthers did, this is the most popular one, but I don't know how many people know the ins and outs and the details, and honestly, for me, the lasting impact it has had. So, excited to dig into it today. I want to back up, though. Who are the Black Panthers?
Let's talk about it.
What would you say? Who would you say the Black Panthers are? What is your perception of who they were? And I say who they were because I did want to point this out. The official Black Panther Party no longer exists. There is a new Black Panther Party, but they are not connected to the original Black Panther Party. The official one just dissolved in the early 80s. But anyway, what do you know about the former Black Panther Party?
I think that as a side introduction from Tupac Shakur, I learned about the Black Panthers. And
his mother, Afeni Shakur.
Right. And I think I learned about it through Tupac Shakur. And coming up in South Carolina, that's a very racist state compared to a lot of other ones. Learned about Tupac Shakur and by relation, the Black Panthers. I thought that they were the first cool group that was just like prideful and I just wanted to be that as a kid. I just felt like they just had so much vigor, and they were so well spoken, and they looked so dope. And the message that they were putting out and the impact that they had on the Black community back then, when it was easy to be like have a lot of fear in your heart back then, they were kind of like, standing in its face, like, nah, putting their fist up. So I think that that's the first image I have when I think about the Black Panthers. There's some holes to them, as is any major political party, but overall, I would say they're a very positive impacting group on the world. In
Yeah,
America.
sure. I think you'll find a variety of opinions on that. Again, we could talk about that for days and days, but they were originally called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense.
Mm.
And they initially were set up to monitor police activities and protect Black residents from police brutality. They were founded in 1966. And here's something that's interesting. They were not the first group of Black Americans to monitor police activity and try to limit the police brutality. But they were the first to do it with armed shotguns. That's kind of what differentiates them.
Yeah.
Here's another fun fact I love about the Black Panther and where they got their name from and where they got the logo from. What I love about this, by now, anyone who's listening to this podcast knows I'm very proud to be a native Southerner from South Carolina, as you mentioned, but I'm also a Howard grad. So back in 1965, Stokely Carmichael, who's a Howard grad, and was a member president of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, he was down in Alabama, and they were really trying to increase voter participation, Black voter participation and registration down there. And the Democratic Party, the white Democratic Party, was using a rooster as their symbol. And so they wanted to make sure that Black voters voted for the right party. So they used the Black Panther as their symbol. So Stokely Carmichael, he's doing his thing with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He feels like they're not moving fast enough. And he gets to meet up with Huey P. Newton, as you mentioned, Bobby Seale. He goes to Oakland, and he brings this Black Panther logo. And they notice it, and they were like, you know what? We're into that.
So it's like civil rights era code switching almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that I'm learning, the more and more I learn about Black history, the more and more I learn that there really is no such thing as something happening spontaneously in one place. Everything is connected. Most things have roots. They have a history. And for the, we'll call it the LCFO, because I don't know how to pronounce that county name, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, they believe the logo of the Black Panther was a symbol of strength, dignity, and self-defense. And it was to make sure, and they used it to persuade Black voters to make sure that they voted for their candidate, kind of gave them a symbol like Black Panther, that's us. And it just caught on. It's a really, I mean, if you see it, it's a really cool.
It's a dope animal.
It's a dope animal. It's a cool animal. But the reason I mention this is, number one, Stokely Carmichael's a Howard grad. So
Carmichael does not get a lot of conversation pieces when it comes to the Black Panthers, I feel like.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because at the time that he was doing his work with SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, with LCFO, this freedom organization, and with the Black Panthers, one of the criticisms that people had was he really made the movement about himself. I think that there was a nickname, Stokely Star Michael. That's what they called him, because he was just so captivating. He was a really, really influential speaker. So I just want to emphasize, and I will continue to emphasize this throughout the episode, when you talk about Black history in America, even if you think something comes from Oakland, there's always a direct tie back to the South. And in this case, it was the Black Panther logo came out of Alabama. So the Black Panthers, they advocated for decent housing, community control of education and the police. They didn't believe that people should have to serve in the military. I mean, a lot of this was happening around Vietnam, so that was a key issue for them. So one thing that they had going for them, and some people call them community programs, but Huey P. Newton called them survival programs. He said, and this is a quote from his book called To Die for the People, "We recognize that in order to bring the people to the level of consciousness where they would seize the time, it would be necessary to serve their interests in survival by developing programs which would help them meet their daily needs. For a long time, we have had such programs, not only for survival, but for organizational purposes. All these problems satisfy the deep needs of the community, but they are not solutions to the problems. That is why we call them survival programs. That means survival pending revolution." So he's like, listen, we got this free breakfast program. We're doing this sickle cell research. They even had an ambulance, healthcare services, all these different things. He said, these are things that we're doing right now until we can get the government and the systems in place that can actually do the right thing. One thing he said was the
That's what's
survival
up.
programs of the Black Panther Party. It's like the survival kit of a sailor stranded on a raft. It helps to sustain him until he can get completely out of that situation. So what do you think about that?
Just talking about survival and not talking about like a pursuit of happiness is what I kind of naturally juxtapose it with. Because you're talking about survival, you're talking about staying alive, and that's kind of what the goal is for these people, is to uplift their communities, uplift their children, protect the people in their
Mm.
communities, as opposed to aspire for, I mean, this is aspiring for a better life, but as opposed to like just aspiring for a better position in where you're at, you're just using the word survive. And I feel like using that word specifically is telling to me about the times that they were in and what they were facing.
And that many people, particularly poor people, are still in. I mean, his view was, and this is a view I share, is that our country is the richest nation in the world, and yet there are people that literally go hungry. And so that's why he's calling this survival. He's like, this is us providing you free breakfast because your government that you pay taxes into is not providing it.
Mm,
This is not a permanent solution. This is what we're doing for right now. We're going to overthrow this whole thing. We're going
I
to get it
got it.
together. So, before we get into the free breakfast program, I know lots of preamble. I This is not the first time that Black folks were feeding other poor folks. And I want to recommend to anyone who really cares about this topic a great book. It's called Power Hungry. It's by Suzanne Cope, maybe Cope, I'm not sure, but it's called Power Hungry: Women of the Black Panther Party in Freedom Summer and Their Fight to Feed a Movement. And something that she points out in here, it's let's see, it's
Susan
right here
Cope,
on Suzanne Cope.
okay.
And it's not just about the free breakfast program. It's also about the programs that people use to feed people throughout the South, also during the civil rights movement.
And these were Black people
Yes.
specifically. Okay.
So, and it made me think of, me growing up in a community that was really family, really close knit. Everyone took care of each other. I remember when I ran away from home, I just ran up the street to my grandmother's house. I mean,
That's about as far as
um,
I made it too.
and
I
had
didn't know
great
you were
food.
away from home.
I did run away from home.
Let's talk about that. Why'd you run away from home?
Who knows? I mean, why does anyone run away from home? I, I didn't last long. I could only watch so much TBN before I was like, you know what? I got to get back to my house. We got cable.
I can't watch no more Price is Right.
Yeah, well, I had no issue with Price is Right. So one of the things that she points out is in working class and middle class Black neighborhoods, uh, what might be considered socialist principles already reign. If one neighbor went hungry, if one neighbor had food, no one went hungry. It was the kind of neighborhood, or she's talking about specifically in Philadelphia, but this was throughout. It was the kind of neighborhood where if someone was out of work, the neighbors might show up with a few dollars or hand-me-downs, no questions asked. So this is just common.
That's
Something else I point out that I loved, Ella Baker, who's one of my favorite people, she deserves her own episode as well. And people are going to start to think I have an anti-North bias and I'm just a South supremacist, and maybe I am a little bit. But one
we
thing
saw
that she says whenever they'd have volunteers come from the North or from the West to come to the South to volunteer, she would say, "You got to realize we've been here for almost 400 years, and we have had a movement ever since we've been here. I know many of you are from some of the quote unquote best schools in the country. So when you do go into rural areas, don't you go in there thinking you're going to lead the people. You find out what they want and then you help them." And she was saying this to SNCC, that organization I mentioned earlier, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And so, I'm sorry?
spoke to the whole committee.
Well, this was the first meeting of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And if you recall, Stokely Carmichael, who was one of the early Black Panthers, was also part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So I don't know if he was there when she said that and he passed that knowledge on to the Black Panthers. But the way the Black Panthers came to the free breakfast program was they were going around asking people, what do they need? What are your issues? What are the problems facing you? You can't really convince people to believe in what you have to say if they don't even have their basic needs met. You kind of got to start with feeding people, educating them, giving them their basic needs, and then you have a very captive audience. Have you heard of the Greenwood food blockade of 1962?
I haven't.
I had not either. In the 1950s, most African American farmers in Mississippi lived on cotton plantations. They were sharecroppers. They owned small pieces of land, and it was incredibly difficult for them to get enough food, especially during the winter. So there was a program called the Federal Surplus Commodities Food Program. And the whole purpose was to provide them with additional food to help them make it through those winter seasons until they could get back, to growing their own food. So they'd provide them like flour, powdered milk, stuff like that. It really kept 90% of Americans alive in that part of the country. So this is a federal program.
Americans.
Yeah, this is now it provided food to anyone, but really the major beneficiaries of it were Black sharecroppers. And so it was a federal program, but it was administered by the local Mississippi County's Board of Supervisors.
Uh-oh.
And SNCC came down there and was trying to get people to register to vote. There were all these Black folks who just weren't voting because they'd been intimidated out of voting. And so the county's Board of Supervisors said, if we think that you participated in civil rights activism, which is literally just trying to vote, we're not going to give you access to this program. We're going to shut the program down. We're cutting off your access to the Surplus Commodities Food Program. It was a voter suppression tactic, and they just cut off food to thousands of starving Black folks because they wanted to vote.
How do you put that on paper? You're fighting for your civil rights, so we are going to take away your federal. How do you even put that on paper? Did stuff get put on paper back then, or did people just
they voted on it. It was a whole thing. Like it wasn't a unanimous vote, but the majority of this group, who many of them were affiliated with what's called the White Citizens Council, which is basically Klan groups, they voted to refuse services to any sharecropper thought to have participated in any activism. And again, they're calling activism trying to vote. Not even you trying to get other people to vote, just you trying to vote. More than 20,000 sharecroppers lost their food. But here's the cool thing about it, and this is where we get the inspiration that I'm building up to for the free breakfast program. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was like, bet. They had national food drives that were literally bringing in truckfuls of food to feed these people. People tried to sabotage the trucks, ruin the food in the trucks, like police would pull them over and do all kind of crazy stuff, but it didn't matter. It was so much food coming down there. Once they heard what was happening, people were, Dick Gregory got involved, Martha King got involved, all these folks got involved in sending food.
I know some names. I'm waiting on some familiar names, but go ahead.
Yeah, so that was in November 1962, and they got so much pressure because of the national attention that came to it that by that spring, they were like, all right. We'll give you the food back. But even after that, even after they reinstated the food, the people just didn't like that they were dependent on this program, and they continued to support them by providing food to the area. So anyway, I bring up that neighborhood in Philly. I bring up the Greenwood food blockade. I bring up all these things just to show that there has been a long time connection between activism and literally feeding people, meeting their very real needs. It only makes sense that the Black Panthers decided to get on the action. So, 1946, the National School Lunch Program is established by Harry Truman. That is a throwback president, if I ever heard one.
Harry Truman,
Yes.
undertold president, one of the better presidents. But continue. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Okay.
Truman?
I'm not really a
another
fan
podcast.
of. Yeah, sure. You let me know what you love about him. But this program provided reduced lunch to poor kids. There was no breakfast program at this time. There was, but it was limited to like rural areas. So basically the Panthers did what Ella Baker recommended, what she suggested. They asked the community what they needed. And so when the Black Panther Party started, it was all male. But very quickly, women started to join the party. And female Black Panthers started to do canvassing of the communities and asked them, what do you need? What are your concerns? And one of the key things they brought up was breakfast. My kids are going to school hungry. So to address this need, right there in Oakland, the Panthers initiated the free breakfast program at St. Augustine's Church in January 1969. Bobby Seale planned this program with Father Earl Neal and Ruth Beckford Smith. They recruited neighborhood mothers to help get all the food in there, and to get everything going. So,
quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said they were founded what year?
The Black Panthers?
Mhm.
I want to say 1966.
Okay. So it took them a couple of years. Okay, okay, okay. I got you. I was just trying to figure out from when they began to when they began the free food program. How long did it take them to get that up?
Let me make sure that's right. Yeah, they were founded in 1966. Now, when they were founded, it was small.
Right.
But by the
They
time
didn't
we get
wait for
to 1968, and the free breakfast program was a really important recruitment tool for the Black Panthers. Now, I will also add something that a lot of people don't know. Do you know what event happened in 1968 that triggered a lot of people to join the Black Panther Party?
I feel like it's easy. Did Martin Luther King get assassinated?
Yes.
Okay.
When Martin Luther King was assassinated, a lot of people were like, nonviolence, I'm
Eh,
good.
Yes.
Let's go, Black Panthers. So, like I said, Bobby Seale and other folks established it. And, if you look at pictures of the free breakfast program, like if you Google it, you'll often see a lot of like really tough looking Black Panther men serving grits and milk to kids. But really, it was the women who did the cooking, the cleaning, setting everything up. I mean, everyone did it. And it was actually a requirement for members to participate in the free breakfast program. But you will sometimes the women get lost because they're not always in the pictures. At that first free breakfast in Oakland, there were 11 kids. By the end of the week, 135 kids.
Sheesh.
By the end of that year, the free breakfast program had spread to 23 cities, and the Black Panthers made it a requirement that if you start a Black Panther chapter in your city, you have to have a free breakfast program. In some cities like New York, they even had them by boroughs. They were all over the place. Now, there are a lot of varying estimates about how many kids they fed. The lowest number I saw was in that first year, they served 20,000 students, which is still quite the feat.
Staggering.
Huey P. Newton says that they served 75,000 kids that year. So I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 75,000. Either way, it's more than I've
Either way,
served.
that's a lot. That's a lot of food.
Um, by 1971, which was a couple of years later, 36 cities had a free breakfast program.
Mm.
A few quick stats about what this looked like in other cities. The Los Angeles Breakfast Program provided food for an estimated 1,200 children each week. In New Orleans, more than 300 kids. In Chicago, 400 children every morning. And in fact, the success of the program in Chicago motivated the local government to have the city of Chicago use federal funds to provide hot breakfast to kids across the city. In addition to that,
Is their ultimate goal, right? Survive until the government decides to, support a little bit.
there you go. There you go. The Kansas City chapter had 2 locations. In order to get donations, the Kansas City chapter visited local entrepreneurs, requested donations. They not only provided free breakfast, but in Kansas City, they started providing free health screenings. So you're talking about a breakfast program that's expanding to improving the health care of an entire community of people who are the poorest of the poor.
I don't hear you often. Well, not you, but I don't hear Black Panthers often talked about in southern places. So like I knew about
Yeah.
Chicago, about New York, but just knowing that there was a Panther Party in Mississippi and in Kansas City just lets you know
I don't
like
think we mentioned any in Mississippi, but uh,
you said somebody out of Mississippi, or maybe they had a program out there.
that was when we were talking about the Greenwood food blockade.
Oh, okay, okay. My
But there
apologies.
I'm not 100% sure if there was a Black
I just
Panther Party
never
in
hear about
Mississippi.
Black Panther parties associated in the South, and it's kind of nice to hear. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, Kansas City, Missouri. I guess that's Midwest, but we'll take it, you know?
Yeah.
If you this is also a random fun fact. Most older books are available for free online. So the Huey P. Newton Foundation has a book that's basically a collection of so many different Black Panther documents. And there's this one, basically, it notates all the details of all of their survival programs. And it is so detailed. They're very meticulous. I'm going to provide a screenshot of it on our Instagram page. But if you wanted to establish a free breakfast food program, they had sample menus. They had methods for how you collect the trash, how you set up the reception, how you set up the seating for the kids, what are the greetings. Like they had it down to everything. They even had recommendations like you need to have your program out of a church if you can, because you get the advantage of a tax-free status of a nonprofit organization. So basically, if you're trying to get someone to donate goods, if you say, well, it's at this church, which is a nonprofit, then you can kind of get the tax write off.
And
So,
I wish I could have been in the room where they were training for all this because it sounds like they were very, very disciplined and focused on what they wanted, and,
yeah,
I like hearing that, yeah. It almost sounds like, Chick-fil-A level focus on service to the community.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Some chapters even provided transportation for the kids. They'd pick them up from their house, they'd take them to the free breakfast site, which maybe was at a church or a
Mhm.
library, and then they would take them to school. I mean, it was
Man, that's love.
complete wraparound services. Um, as I mentioned, the breakfasts also were recruiting tools. So you might think that you use those breakfasts to recruit the parents, um, or the children who eventually would grow up to be in the program, and that's sort of true. But it also brought in teens and young adults who worked to make the food, not just the people eating it. So many young Black people at this time, just like you, they were excited. They were like, "I want to join the Panthers. I'm tired of what's going on." And they saw the guns and the firearms, and they were like riled up, and they were like, "Let me do this." And if you were new to the Panthers, they would be like, "Bet." I need you to go serve breakfast. And they'd be like, wait, what?
You're not just about to put no shotgun in your hand.
And they were like, no, you got to go in there, get with the sister in the kitchen. This is a direct quote from Elbert Big Man Howard. He was the editor of the Panther newspaper. He says, no, you come in, you go in there with some sister in the kitchen, you learn how to cook grits and eggs, and you get up and you go serve breakfast for school children. Now they were getting up at like 5 a.m. to do this. Imagine they were able to get young men to get up early to serve breakfast. Um, to kids. So, I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing,
It is.
regardless of, other feelings that people may have about the party. This was I think this was a really smart
Are we gonna
way.
expound on feelings that other people might have about the party?
The perception of the Black Panther Party. I mean, a panther is not exactly the most cuddly animal. When most people conjure up an image of the Black Panther Party, you have that wicker chair with the members sitting there and they've got the guns behind them.
Right,
You got the black berets. You're not really thinking about most people aren't thinking about them serving breakfast.
right,
And
okay.
we'll get into this a little bit when we talk about what ended up happening towards the end. But it's really disarming to a person, to a community, to a person struggling to eat who may have this negative perception of the Black Panther Party. If they come up to you and they're like, "Hey, do your kids need breakfast? Yeah, come on down at 7:30 a.m. We might
Yeah,
even give
get
them a
some
ride
eggs.
to school."
Yeah.
It's really hard to be afraid of someone who's giving you eggs and grits. I did want to point out something. I read on this website called blackpast.org, and they said local businesses, churches, and community based organizations donated, sometimes with community pressure, space for the program and nutritious foods like eggs, grits, toast, and milk. What was the community pressure?
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, let me tell you what that pressure was. This is probably one of my favorite things. Again, this is from Power Hunger. I'm reading directly from this. I did not write this. I'm just reading what it says here. Generally, local businesses were forthcoming with regular donations such as bacon, bread, grits, cocoa. I didn't know about cocoa, eggs, or milk. But occasionally, there would be resistance. When shopkeepers, many of whom did not live in the neighborhood, refused to donate to the free breakfast program, the Panthers might organize a boycott. Party members and neighbors would start a picket line in front of the store, carrying placards that said, "This business won't feed hungry kids," and "They don't
Mm,
care about you."
stand on it.
Another placard had an arrow and an address for a nearby bodega that did support the free breakfast program. Most shoppers stopped at the doorway where Panthers and local mothers, perhaps holding babies or with small kids at their feet, were standing with their signs, and then turning around when they saw that sign saying, "They don't care about you," they'd be like, ah. They would turn
Mm,
around and they would go to that arrow to the other shop. Few dared to break the picket line. I'm not breaking a picket line if I see a Black Panther standing outside of it. I'm going to do
nah,
what you
no
tell me to
them
do.
berets.
Inevitably, the resistant owners would come around, grudgingly or not, donating a few items a week. To the Panthers, full community involvement was a part of their philosophy. One of the Black Panthers said, "We never spent a penny or a dime to feed the children. We demanded that the greedies who came into our community give back. If you want to be here in this community, then you have to contribute to this community. You don't come in here and rob this community." So I love
I
that.
wish we still had that. I wish that was still a sentiment in the communities now.
I mean,
That's strong.
I wouldn't say that it isn't. Not to skip ahead, but there are a lot of organizations today that are inspired by the free breakfast program, and do demand that we make sure that no kid goes hungry. There's lots of organizations that is really their core cause, and almost all of them cite the importance of the free breakfast program and inspiring them. Not just Black groups, many nonprofits.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's just like you said, survival. Kids gotta eat.
Well, speaking of that, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the benefits of breakfast. Um, One of the folks, Ruth Beckford, who we were mentioned earlier, who helped start the program in Oakland, she said, after we started our breakfast program in Oakland, the school principal came down and told us how different the children were. They weren't falling asleep in class. They weren't crying with stomach cramps. And at the time, there was all this research that has continued to be backed up now that students who have regular breakfast consumption have better diet quality. They make better food choices throughout the day. For children, and much of this is backed by the USDA and other research, breakfast consumption has been associated with improved learning and school performance. The importance of breakfast for academic achievement is reflected in the effects of breakfast on cognitive performance. And there's also research that suggests skipping breakfast affects problem solving, short term memory, attention, and episodic memory in children. So,
Mm.
and if you look on a Cheerios box, they'll tell you it's a heart healthy meal.
Yeah, yeah. I don't feel like you needed a free food program for people to know that. Maybe you needed a free food program for people to know that about Black kids, but I feel like that was probably common knowledge anyway. But the free food program just made it pertinent towards, people of color.
I mean, I think, um, and I think something that often gets lost in Reverend Dr. King's legacy is that he was initially fighting about civil rights for Black people, but towards the end of his life, he was really focused on improving the quality of lives for poor people, period. I mean, poverty was an issue not just for Black people. I mean, you've got Appalachia, which had all the rural white communities. You have lots of indigenous and Latino communities that also had lots of poverty issues. And Reverend Dr. King was starting to talk about those things. The Panthers also, they were not a lot of I saw a lot of this in that movie. What was the movie that just came out about the Black Panthers on the side?
Uh, I
Whatever.
watched it. I know what you're talking.
Um, you know, it was really a intercultural effort. Um, it wasn't just about supporting Black folks. It was about supporting all people it was really about worker and class struggle. And
100%.
so, um, not having breakfast was an issue. While 95% of the students who were served by the Black Panther free breakfast program were Black, there were also white kids, certainly indigenous kids, many other kids who benefited from the program. And they certainly didn't turn anyone away. There was no test of, what your color is. I think if anything, it probably would have served more white kids if there was just more awareness about what the Black Panthers were doing around free breakfast. So I
Yeah.
think, I do think it's important to speak to the real academic and the real research and the real reasoning behind providing this. It wasn't just a recruitment tool. It wasn't just a PR stunt. They really believe that this was important to empower the community. They had a lot of education programs, so they're like, well, we can't educate you if you're hungry. So,
Can't get you if you're hungry.
you know. So this sounds amazing, right? It sounds like it's going to have a happy ending. That's it, right? We have the
Eh,
free breakfast program. Everything's great.
Kids are
No?
eating.
Yeah. No. That's not what happened. Um, from the beginning, serving poor kids eggs, grits, and toasted milk infuriated the FBI, namely Hoover. I've never heard anything good about J. Edgar Hoover now that we're thinking about it. But anyway, in between wiretapping Reverend Dr. King, Malcolm X, and in between assassinating Fred Hampton, he found time to try to destroy free breakfast for poor kids. He believed, rightfully so, that the free breakfast program was so influential for the Black Panther Party, and he thought that it was the greatest threat to efforts by authorities to neutralize them.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to convince people that the Black Panther Party is out to get you and to harm you and doesn't care about your community when they're just
They're
providing
feeding you.
breakfast. They're providing breakfast for thousands and thousands of
Off
kids.
of donations.
Community pressure, we'll say. Um,
Yeah.
Melvin Dixon, a former member of the Black Panther Party, he said the FBI disliked the Black Panther Party because the party helped to shed light on the failure of the U.S. government to address the issues of poverty. The U.S. government has all this money, but here we are, a grassroots organization feeding kids all across the U.S. And they were embarrassed. And, I read articles, listened to a few podcasts, read this book and a couple others. And something that I heard from every single source pointed out that in 1969, there was a Senate hearing about school lunch. And the National School Lunch Program Administrator admitted that the Black Panthers fed more poor school children than the entire state of California.
Crazy.
This is a fact that's repeated over and over again. They are very proud of this fact. And
It's a big
they were just
fact.
like,
The entire state?
the entire state of
The biggest state
California.
it's one of the biggest states in the country.
So what they did, they did all types of things. They would send forged letters to stores, saying they were pretending they were part of the community, saying like, "Hey, brother, man, you shouldn't donate food." Like they were just pretending to be members of the Black Panther Party. They would spread rumors to the community that the food was poison.
Is
Sorry.
COINTELPRO something that's
Yes.
as it relates to free food, or is that more so
Yes.
like
COINTELPRO was part of this.
okay.
They raided the sites while the children ate. So while the kids were eating their breakfast, they would do a raid on the site. So then the parents were like, well, I can't send my kids there anymore. One FBI raid in Chicago, they ended with them urinating on all the food that was supposed to be used for the children's breakfast program. There were just all types of things that were going on. It wasn't just the free breakfast program that was targeted. There was constant wiretapping.
Yeah.
And so eventually, all of that effort, all that activity, in combination with a lot of infighting within the Black Panther Party, many of it started by the government, sowing seeds of discontent, led to the end of the free breakfast program, at least as we know it from the Black Panthers in the early 1970s.
I was gonna say, what year would you say it was they stopped? Early 70s?
Yeah, and it really varied depending on where the chapters were.
Yeah.
Most chapters were closed by the 1970s. I think the last chapter closed in the early 1980s.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say, yeah, they probably got disbanded in the 70s at some point.
yeah, and one of the things was about the wiretapping is once you have members who know that their phones are going to be tapped if they're associated with the Black Panther Party, they're like, you know what? I don't think I want to be in this group anymore. So
Yeah.
that was really what led to their declining membership was you would just get harassed if you were a part of the group. And people had
Yeah.
enough problems. They didn't really want
Harassment in
that.
the 60s ain't harassment in 2026, man. You do not want that smoke. You got your kids, you got a wife, you got a husband. It's very, very scary to be defiant during that time frame.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The official program ended, as I mentioned, in the 70s, but the impact of it did not end. In fact, we still feel the impact today. Um, the Panthers Free Breakfast Program really helped to spotlight the limited scope of the National School Breakfast Program, which was almost non-existent at this time. And so they helped to pressure Congress to authorize expansion of the Free Breakfast Program to all public schools in 1975.
Yeah.
In 2018, and so I'm sure it's even more so now, the school breakfast program had expanded to more than 2.4 billion breakfasts in the United States. When you just think about that, all the people that have eaten as a result of, even in North Carolina. So in North Carolina, um, certainly in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, I can speak to my child. Free breakfast is provided, no questions asked. You don't have to fill out a form. Most of the kids in my son's school wouldn't qualify for free or reduced breakfast, but they are able to get free or reduced breakfast. And a lot of this happened during COVID. During COVID, when there was so much going on, something that happened in a lot of states was something called universal lunch and universal breakfast. It was just you don't have to fill out a form. You don't have to explain what happened. You don't have to say my mom lost their job because of COVID. You could just say you needed breakfast and you had it. They just provided it, no questions asked. And I think about when I was in high school, I received free lunch. I don't remember if I got free breakfast, but I remember I got free lunch. And I remember I didn't want people to know that I had a free lunch. And I remember one time this girl said to me, um, she said, "You get free lunch? You don't even get reduced lunch? That's how broke y'all are?" And I was just so embarrassed. And, it's unfortunate that people are ashamed of poverty because it's not your fault. But if you look at
That's
when I
all in your pockets. That's what you should have said.
well, that's what high school students do. I mean,
Because
when
none
you're
of
in
us
high
getting
school,
paid. We all off our moms.
well, it's what
Should have.
high school. When you're in high school, you're always looking for something that makes someone different. But
Always
you
making us.
know, COVID really illuminated that poverty can happen to anybody. You can be doing well one day and then you are in the gig economy the next day. It's something that really helped to make it clear how close we all are to poverty if we're not already in it. And in that book, in one of Huey P. Newton's essays, when he's talking about the survival programs, he said something that made me, you know, somewhat emotional. And let me just caveat, I want to make sure I say this because justice for Erica Hutchins, who's still alive. Um, Huey P. Newton was not a perfect person. He made some mistakes.
This
But
is his
one
girl?
thing, it was not his girl.
Okay.
That's a whole nother episode. Um, but something that he said is all of our survival programs are free. We have never charged the community a dime to receive the things they need from any of our programs, and we will not do so. We will not get caught up in a lot of embarrassing questions or paperwork which alienate the people. If they have a need, we will serve their needs and attempt to get them to understand the true reason why they are in need in such an incredibly rich land. Survival programs will always be operated without charge to those who need them and benefit by them. And when you think about the impact of the Black Panthers, of their survival programs, I think about that. And I think about if you fast forward from 1960, the 1960s, all the way to 2020 when COVID happened, and they decided, you know what, we're not going to make people fill out a form to get free and reduced lunch. And some states decided we're just going to keep this
Pretty
going
much
forever.
bullied the government into free lunch.
Yeah. I mean, almost actually all of our rights and privileges were bullied. We had to bully our country into. None of them were given to us. Um, but yeah, there are some states now. I believe California is one. New York is one where they just have what's called universal free lunch, and that's just where lunch is provided, no questions asked. North Carolina, at least specifically as I mentioned in Charlotte, free breakfast is available to students. They don't have to pay for it. It's just out there. It's available. There's fruit. There's milk. There's usually something hot there that any student can have. And it's very clear to me that there's a very straight line between what the Black Panthers did and what my son, who was born way after the Black Panther Party was dissolved, experiences today. And I just love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's dope. I had free lunch. I don't think nobody ever made fun of me about it, but once we moved to Charlotte, I didn't have free lunch anymore. So I don't know if that what they have here in Charlotte was what was always going on. That might be something new because there were some days I ain't eat nothing. You know what I'm saying? Ice sandwiches.
Ice sandwiches?
Yeah.
Tell me about the ice sandwich.
Well, self-explanatory. You just get a little bit of ice, and if
It doesn't
somebody
seem self-explanatory. I'm not understanding a soggy bread situation.
so it's not about me.
Based on what you learned today or heard today, I don't know, you may have known a lot of this already, based on your Huey P. Newton tattoo. What are your thoughts about the Black Panther Party, the free breakfast program, anything we've discussed?
I'm a little bit more educated on the free food program than I was before. What did I learn? More of the same. The government, man, it's just disgusting. It disgusts me. And when you learn your history about people who are fighting for what should be free, what should come with the taxes that you pay, it just kind of makes you just sick to your stomach when you think about the people who are making the big decisions that the working class had to gather themselves in community to get their people together, feed them, and the government came and shut it down. Of all the things that
Yeah,
going on in the 50s and the 60s,
yeah.
but nah, let's worry about the Black Panthers feeding the community and making us look like we don't care because y'all don't. You know, that's what I learned a little bit more. Sorry, it's a little morbid. But
Well, I mean, just to keep that morbidity going, in 2025, this current administration proposed more than $1 billion in cuts of funding to two long-running programs that help schools and food banks feed children and families in need. So,
two
uh,
billion,
$1 billion.
one
And most
billion.
of this was a lot of there was a program that allowed local farms to provide fresh produce to local schools. So instead of, you kind of getting your apples from wherever, you could provide local food, which reduces the carbon impact, but also just is great. It supports those local farms to local schools, but that program has been cut.
Has been disbanded.
It's not completely disbanded, but I think it's cut.
Mm.
Or maybe the whole program is cut. I'm not sure. It's called Local Food for Schools.
It
So
does make me wanna go to a food shelter tomorrow on my next day off or something though, and it just got me in the spirit just to feed somebody, but yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, again, I kind of want to turn this back around and end on a positive note. And I do think, even if people don't know it, just knowing that they were able to, just a few people got together and were like, you know
This
what?
ain't right.
These people need food. Started with 11 kids and got to hundreds of thousands of kids who were fed over a relatively short period of
I was
time,
about to say a few years.
leading to millions of people being fed now. Children, I don't, I see that as a success story. The kids are
Yeah.
fed.
Sorry.
Um, and a lot of the Panthers that did some of that work, many of them are still living and they're still doing that activist work. And I love that. I'll share some links, the notes to all of the sources that I got for the story. A lot of good stuff, lots of really good, rich video, um, and just intimate stories about, the work that was happening. Erica,
Yeah.
Ericka Hutchins, she's my new favorite
I
person.
was gonna say, make sure you plug Erica because I'm not too savvy to Erica Huggins. So make sure you plug Erica Huggins in because that I should have spoke a little bit more on her. Well, on what I learned. I learned a little bit about Erica Huggins and I plan on
Tell me
going.
about, I've been saying her name wrong. So tell me about Erica Huggins. Tell me what you know about her.
No, no, that's why I checked myself. I should have said that's what I learned more about Erica Huggins because I was unfamiliar of her existence before this podcast.
Yeah, she's is great. I won't say was. I literally just watched a video of her from a couple years ago, looking very alive and well and healthy,
It
and
was good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know about the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program. We don't know everything we know there is to know about the Black Panthers, but at least we know about breakfast. So, we like to end our episode with what is something that you are listening to, something that you're reading, just what is something going on in your life that you want to recommend to others?
I don't know what everybody else has going on in their life, but what I have going on in my life is I am a pending father. So I've been
Mm,
reading these two books. I have this one book called We're Gonna Be We're Pregnant, and it pretty much it's an easy read and it gets you week by week on what you should do, what can expect to be as a father and how you can help your spouse out, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, your baby mom. It's awesome. And then there's another book on expecting fatherhood that I've been reaching, which has been it kind of keys in on what you can do as a father. So I don't know who's out there who's about to be expecting or who's planning or who's
who are
looking.
the authors of those books?
Um, I have We're Parents. This is the part two of We're Pregnant. It is Adrian Colt. These
Okay.
are New York Times bestsellers. So yeah, good stuff. And yeah, they will be learning about the free food program as soon as they can comprehend it, whenever she comes out. Um, yeah,
Nice.
I mean,
I will also point out to the audience that you changed a diaper yesterday. A pretty hefty, smelly diaper. And it
it looks
wasn't a
pretty sweet.
newborn diaper, which the newborn diapers are a little easier.
Shout out to
Uh,
Nehemiah, my nephew. He was very agreeable with me. He held his
it was
legs
actually
up.
Josiah.
Josiah.
Nehemiah's
Shout
potty
out to
trained.
say what?
Nehemiah's potty trained.
Yeah, Nehemiah got it. Shout out to Josiah. He was friendly. It's almost as if he enjoyed it. So made it easy for me. I'm gonna need a little bit more practice with him before the time comes. But I was gonna say something else. Um, Yeah, that's what I'm reading. I'm reading about being pregnant and having kids, guys. So that's my life.
I will say, first of all, that's great. That's awesome. I will say, if you are changing a child's diaper and they throw their feet into the air to make sure you have all the room you need, and they hold them there in place, it's probably time for them to be potty trained. If they say, give me a diaper, if they can throw their own diaper away into the trash can, it's probably time to,
So what's up with Josiah then?
we'll see what we can do. Got a lot of podcasting work to do. Anyway, thank you so much for your time here. Thank you so much for joining us on Undertold today. It's great to hear and to share with someone who is just as passionate about caring for the people, about revolutionaries, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Please like this. Please share it with a friend who did not know that the Black Panthers had this amazing program, and subscribe so you can hear more.
Tell more stories about Black Panthers. They got a lot more stories too. Subscribe.